Tensions running high in Iraq's Anbar province after the arrest of an outspoken member of parliament. It's an area where opposition to the Iraqi government runs high and where al-Qaeda has gained a foothold. So is this al-Maliki fighting terrorism or simply cracking down on his Sunni opponents? You're watching Inside Story. Hello and welcome to the programme. I'm Laura Kyle. Ahmed al-Alwani was arrested on Saturday in Ramadi. He is a prominent Sunni lawmaker and supporter of anti-government protests. The raid at his home was violent and clashes left at least 5 people dead, including Alwani's brother. The government says the operation was part of a plan to restore security and target al-Qaeda fighters. Alwani's detention is likely to inflame sectarian tensions in Iraq, where Sunnis say the Shia-led government is discriminating against them. Now, Anbar province, which is home to Ahmed al-Alwani, is a flashpoint in Iraq. Over the past year, it's become the centre of frequent anti-government protests. The largely Sunni crowds claim Nouri al-Maliki's Shia-led government is neglecting Sunni provinces and depriving them of basic services. In April, a heavy crackdown on the Anbar sit-ins killed some 50 people. While the protesters remained defiant, Maliki warned on Friday that it would be the last day protests would be allowed to continue. He believes al-Qaeda has infiltrated them. These pictures show the Iraqi forces' response last week when they launched an operation to target al-Qaeda in the Anbar desert. Levels of violence in Iraq are now at their highest since 2006 and 2007, when tens of thousands of people were killed in sectarian fighting. And many of the near-daily bombings, shootings and suicide attacks in the country have been staged by al-Qaeda fighters. The security situation continues to deteriorate. The UN says more than 8,000 Iraqis have been killed this year, around 950 of them from the security forces. Let's now introduce our guests with whom we'll be discussing this very volatile situation in Iraq. First of all, in Baghdad, we have Ahmed Rushdi. He's a political analyst. In London, Salah Hashimi, legal advisor to the Iraqi League. That's a UK-based rights group. And in London, via Skype, we have Mowaffak al-Rubaie, former Iraqi national security advisor. Mr. al-Rubaie, if we could start with you, why was Alwani arrested on Saturday? What are the specific charges that have been laid against him?
Well, the viewers need to know the story behind it, because the Iraqi security forces were going to arrest his brother, Ali al-Alwani. And he lives next door to his brother. And the Iraqi security forces were confronted with the hell of fires, from moderate and heavy fire from al-Alwanis, both Ahmed al-Alwani and al-Alwani and their guards. And we lost one soldier and injured another four. Now, he was told to put his arms down, and he did not respond. By loudspeaker, the commander of the local counter-terrorism brigade asked him to put down his arm because he was not targeted, and the Iraqi security forces wanted to arrest his brother, not him. But he opened fire and killed one soldier and injured 4. Now, the security forces have no choice but to storm the place. And when he ran out of his ammunition, Ahmed al-Alwani, he surrendered and raised his hand and said, I'm surrendering.
OK, that's interesting. Why initially, a number of questions raised there, but why initially were they going after Alwani's brother?
Well, Ali al-Alwani, who is not a member of parliament, he was the Iraqi judicial system ordered a warrant arrest against him because of his linked or association or alleged association with al-Qaeda, and also logistical help to the terrorists, and also his raising the sectarian statement against the, well, basically increasing the sectarian polarization in the country.
Okay, let's go over to Salah Hashimi, who's obviously listening, heard that account of the arrest. What are the circumstances as you understand them, Mr. Hashimi?
Well, I just listened to your guest, and it seems like he described the situation so accurately as if he was there. This is the government's point of view, that was just reiterated by your guest. We need to know the facts, and we just don't know them as of yet. There's a very interesting point in this issue. Normally, in a functioning democracy, and I'm speaking here as a lawyer, in a functioning democracy, a government carries out an arrest through ordinary police forces. And those are the ones who carry out the arrest warrants issued by a functioning judiciary. What happened here was that a group of so-called SWAT team, if I remember correctly, surrounded the area in order to carry out an arrest. Now, if we look at the history of SWAT team, they have been criticized by numerous individuals. They have been accused of being sectarian. They have been accused of being extremely violent in their arrests. And therefore, when they showed up in that area, you're not going to really find people who are going to be receiving them with hugs and flowers. They're going to be very suspicious of them. I don't know what the circumstances of the incident, Hamid, because I think it was a closed area at the time. But we need to understand that these SWAT teams are very controversial. In fact, they don't belong to either the Interior Ministry nor do they belong to the Defense Ministry. They're only answerable, as I understand it, to the Office of the Prime Minister. And to confirm what I've just said, the reaction afterwards to pictures released by these teams of both the arrest of the Member of the Parliament and also the murder of his brother is a case in point. Facebook and Twitter showed pictures, horrific pictures, of the arrest and the murder. So I'm going to be slightly disputing what has happened because we don't know the facts, and in fact the Iraqi parliament was summoned by the leader Osama al-Nujayfi, who tried to establish a committee and send that committee over to Anbar province in order to find out exactly what happened. And guess what? They were stopped apparently today, as reports suggest, by the army from entering the province. So you make of that what you wish, but I think someone is preventing the facts from coming out. Okay, well, let's bring in Ahmed Rushdi to see what his account of events are, because there's clearly two very different versions there in Iraq.
Well, actually, Laura, let's speak frankly about the consequences of this crisis. Actually, this crisis made three major problem aspects, actually. Number one, tribal. Number two, political. And number three, parliamentary. We know that the tribe of al-Alwani is one of the biggest tribes in Anbar, and they are governing the city of Ramadi, actually. And it is the Anbar known as tribes province. So we have a very big problem because all the other tribes stand for the Alwani tribes, and they are asking the Prime Minister to release Ahmed al-Alwani. This is the first aspect of this crisis. The second aspect is political, because we know that in about 4 months there will be elections. This will named as attacking or targeting Sunni leaders. This is the second aspect. The third aspect is parliamentary. He's supposed to be an MP, so he has an immunity, or let's say he's an immunized person. Now, what people said in Anbar, that in front of all these aspects of this crisis, we are going to solve problems with the government against al-Qaeda and also for the people who are protesting against the government. It's supposed to be solved before what's happening to Ahmed al-Alwani. So this is a big question. It's supposed to be settled. These two main problems is supposed to be settled. And to be honest with you, all Iraqis, Sunni and Shia, they were very pleased by the action of the army against al-Qaeda, because it means that we have a very big army and a strong army. But what's happened now draw this image actually in front of the people, and even the other part, even the let's say the Shia, and now also they're afraid because it means that even their MPs are not immunized. This is, let's say, this is the diagnosis of the crisis.
Mowaffak al-Rubaie, there is no escaping the fact, is there, that this is a very prominent, a Sunni prominent MP. Mr. al-Alwani was very anti-government. He was very involved in the anti-government protest there in Anbar. I mean, this is really going to inflame the situation.
Let me correct two facts mentioned for the benefits of your viewers. Number one, there was no single member of the SWAT team, which belongs to the Ministry of Interior, took part in that operation. They're all, and exclusively all of them, a member of the counter-terrorism forces from Baghdad.
Okay.
So this is number one. Number two, the immunity issue. The immunity of the member of parliaments, they continue enjoying this immunity as long as they're not caught red-handed firing and killing people and finishing their ammunition and running after they run out of their ammunition, they get arrested. So that is number two. The ammunition, the immunity is as long as they are not caught red-handed committing crimes. Now, I believe the real point here is for all Iraqis, all political blocs in Iraq, and every Iraqi on earth has to go behind the Iraqi security forces in their fight, and their noble, sacred national fight against al-Qaeda. And there are two sources of violence here. One is al-Qaeda violence, and al-Qaeda violence is a terrorist violence. There is no two ways about it. It's counter-terrorism, and this is an intelligence-led war, and we have to improve our intelligence to defeat al-Qaeda. This is exactly what we are doing now.
Okay,
now,
Mr. al-Rubaie, I'm just going to jump in because I just want to press my point here, because al-Alwani's arrest will be seen as yet another example of the protesters saying this is part of a government-led crackdown on Sunni leaders. And they'll also point to two other cases of very high-profile arrests. Now, last year, several bodyguards of the former finance minister, Rafi al-Isawi, a Sunni, were arrested on terrorism charges. And a year before that, an arrest warrant issued for the Sunni then Vice President, Tariq al-Hashimi, carrying the same charges. Now, he since, of course, has fled into exile. Al-Rubaie, this latest arrest of Alwani, as I was trying to say before, just proves, doesn't it, the protesters' point that the government is cracking down on Sunni leaders.
This is absolute nonsense. This is a ridiculous accusation, honestly. And it has nothing to do. I'm saying this is my second point. There is a politically motivated violence, and this violence is stemming from and originating from these squares, or what you call it, the picketing square, the demonstrations in Anbar, which all their demands are legal, they are justifiable, and the government and the parliament has to address them and fulfill them and work hard on them. There is no. I fully agree with their demands. Each and every one of them, I agree with them. But okay. What I don't agree with is using violence to gain your political for political settlement, or for political gains, or for economic gains.
Salah Hashimi, do you think that this arrest was politically motivated by al-Maliki?
Well, I'm absolutely surprised that your guest calls your question to be ridiculous, because let's put it this way: there are more than one armed militia in Iraq now in operation. Two significant ones. In fact, less than a month ago, one of them fired rockets at Saudi Arabia, and their leader appeared the next day saying, "Yes, we did it." The government has said we have an arrest warrant against him, but miraculously they have not been able to find him. There are, of course, other armed militias who the government have either refused to prosecute or is unable to do so. But they are only prosecuting those who are leading and actively participating in peaceful demonstrations. On a number of occasions, the demonstrators of Anbar Anbar have invited the government to come in and search all tents. And I do believe that it happened once, and they found absolutely nothing. Nobody after that can accuse them of being violent. In fact, there was a repeated request for them to search the tents, but I think the government has refused to do so. That is one. Number two, the issue about SWAT or whoever arrested. Now, why do you need anti-terrorist groups to arrest a person acting as people who are executing a warrant issued by the judiciary? That is the role of the police. Why isn't the police doing this? If the and I say this because it's really, really important, because if the police were doing this, then the people of Al-Anbar, particularly the tribe of al-Alwani, wouldn't feel suspicious, wouldn't feel slightly uneasy about the whole thing. That's my point behind it. Now, also, we need to put things into perspective. Al-Anbar province is huge, and I mean it is really huge. It is the largest province in Iraq. There are bound to be some armed groups who may infiltrate that province in order to carry out acts against the government. That doesn't mean to accuse the demonstrators and the leaders of those demonstrations, particularly the brother of that MP, of being violent or carrying out violent acts. Let's not mix the two issues together. That is really, really important.
Okay, but you can see where the government has problems, doesn't it? Because, I mean, there is no doubt, no one's contesting the fact that there is al-Qaeda in Iraq, and it's causing a huge number of casualties every day. And we do have a major protest centre in Anbar province, which is where there are a lot of al-Qaeda fighters. So what is the solution then for going after al-Qaeda?
Well, first of all, the most important point that we need to address here is actually answering the demands of the demonstrators. They are all constitutional, they are all legal, but only partially have been responded to by this government in order to address their grievances. Now, at the end of the day, we must recall that the people who actually fought al-Qaeda were the people of Al-Anbar themselves. It wasn't the government. It was the people of Anbar who fought them. So it is now slightly rich from the government to accuse peaceful demonstrators, and I repeat that, peaceful because they have invited the government to come and search them to find absolutely nothing there.
Okay.
But instead of answering their demands, you are going to either threaten to attack them or try and arrest their spokesmen and people who are active within them.
Okay,
I think that's
Ahmed
going to be
Rushdi,
counterproductive.
What attempts have we been seeing from the Maliki government to try to get Sunnis on side, to provide concessions from to the demonstrators?
Believe me, before 3 days, everyone stood with Mr. Maliki on his fight against Qaeda, and everyone here, especially in Baghdad, you know, the security situation in Baghdad was very bad. Everyone here in Baghdad was very happy with what's happening in Anbar, with the help of the people of Anbar. Actually, we need now, what's happening with Dr. Alwani is that we need to diffuse the crisis. We need now some solutions to diffuse the crisis, because three things will be consequences. Number one, there will be no fight against Qaeda from the people of Anbar, because they will say we will be targeted by the government. So why are we all fighting the Qaeda? Make the Qaeda fight the government and so on. This is one. Secondly, it's just I said, it's a political issue. It's supposed to be there is a major problem with the participation in the elections. People will say, why are we going to participate in the elections? Why we will have MPs when they are targeted? Number three, which is a very important issue, development and progress in the development in Iraq, which needs stabilization of Iraq. We will see more bad security situation in Iraq, especially in Baghdad, after what's happening with Mr. Alwani. This is the common sense. But actually, I think with what's happening now, with negotiations inside the province, inside the Anbar province, between the tribes, the governor, and also the political MPs of Anbar inside Anbar, and also I think the Iraqi government now opening doors with the presence of Saadun Dilemi, who is the Ministry of Defense, inside these negotiations, open a door to diffuse the crisis. And I hope it will be diffused soon. We all hope that we will diffuse soon, because we all do not want Iraq to come to an not helpful end.
Mr. al-Rubaie, of course, these elections that are mentioned are coming up in April. It's not very far away. How is Maliki going to allow the Sunni community, allow Sunni lawmakers to feel that they are very much a part of that election?
Before I answer the question, I need to say one thing, that we Iraqis, we may differ politically, for political power, for economic interest. That's fair. That's no problem. But we should be united in supporting our Iraqi security forces in their fight against al-Qaeda. Nobody, no soldier or officer should look over his shoulder and saying that this political party and that politician is stabbing me in the back.
Well, since you brought up that point, let's throw it over to Salah Hashimi. Can Iraqis feel united in their support of the security forces?
Well, I think that can be achieved, provided that there is a leadership, a unifying leadership, working towards this cause. At this moment in time, we have the security forces targeting the active organizers within peaceful demonstrations. How can it be that the Iraqi people could trust those forces when they can see that they are targeting peaceful demonstrators and their leaders or their spokesmen? That cannot be possible. You need to address the root causes of the problem. The root causes of the problem are meeting the demonstrators' demands. They are very simple, they're very straightforward, but I think the government, by refusing to do so, are actually dividing the community on itself. Now, I think my view is, and I think I need to mention this, there are 4 issues in relation to this recent attack. Number one, I think al-Maliki is using this as an election ploy, as you've suggested mainly. Secondly, this is trying to gauge the response of the Sunni community in the Anbar province as to any future attack that might take place against the protesters. 3, this is basically another warning sign to al-Alwani as an MP, that we can target your brother and therefore we can silence you as well. And number 4, which is really, really important, I don't think anyone picked up on this. Let's look at the timing of this attack. It just happened immediately after, I believe, the devastating bombing in Beirut. Now, no one can deny that it stole the limelight from the incident in Beirut. Now, I wonder, was this perfectly timed? I put this question open to everybody to think about.
Okay, well, first of all, let's just quickly go to Ahmed Rushdi and see very briefly what your thoughts are on that.
Well, actually, I hope as an Iraqi, Iraqi lived in Iraq, in Baghdad actually, that the crisis will be diffused, just I said. And I think by time we will see either diffusing the crisis or exploding of everything in Iraq, because this issue made every Iraqi now responsible for his action inside the election. Actually, this is first. And secondly, people now asking why until now we didn't defeat Qaeda, and there will be a major question for them, for the government, and there will no answer, because if you don't have the assistance of the people of the provinces to defeat the Qaeda, you will not get any progress.
Okay, al-Rubaie, the last word then to you. How do you see this crisis being diffused in Iraq?
The overarching plan has to be a true national reconciliation. The whole package, comprehensive package of national reconciliation, of inclusion of all components of Iraq. That's the overall, and all components of Iraq, all communities has to rally behind the Iraqi security forces. We may criticize Maliki, we may criticize his government, we may criticize his politics or his economy. That's not the issue. The issue is Iraqis should unite behind their Iraqi security forces.
Okay. Thank you very much there. I'm afraid we do have to leave it. We have run out of time. Thanks very much to all our guests for joining us from London, Mowaffak, al-Rubaie and Salah Hashimi, and in Baghdad, Ahmed Rushdi. And thanks very much to you two for joining us on this edition of Inside Story. Any feedback, just drop us an email to insidestory@aljazeera.net. Bye for now.